I think it's important that you understand, if you don't already, the great credibility and accomplishments of our speaker today, Tony Fauci, who's director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health. As you'll hear in his remarks, he served under 5 presidents, which I think is quite relevant to the conversation we've been having already this morning. He was one of the principal architects of the creation of PEPFAR. He's a member of the National Academy of Sciences and National Academy of Medicine. Many awards, including the National Medal of Science and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Dr. Fauci has 43 honorary doctoral degrees, author, co-editor, editor of more than 1,290 scientific publications. He brings experience and credibility and perspective. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fauci.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I've spoken at after-dinner speeches and intra-dinner speeches, but I've never spoken to a line of people waiting to get their food. So it's nice to have you. Anyway, it's the idea that we are now a few days away from a new administration obviously prompted the really extraordinarily, very enjoyable, and I'm really pleased I had the opportunity to listen to the panel, both of Amy and Ron, and as well as Bill and Dr. Jafari, which really, I think, set the stage for so many of the things that we are going to be dealing with over the coming years. Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge, the coming administration, in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. But also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, and the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with. So for those who think that infectious diseases is gone, there's so many people who've made foolhardy statements not knowing at the time that they made them.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John. Please. I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe there's stuff now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
How dare you?
Shame on you.
These people are sick.
In the last election cycle, teachers unions donated more than $4 million to Democratic Party candidates in Congress. They gave fewer than 50 grand to Republicans. Of course, I'll tell you, this isn't about money, it's about science. But science, unlike the teachers unions, has changed quite a bit during this pandemic. Now science is telling us we need to wear 2 masks instead of just 1. In fact, experts on other networks suggest we might need to wear 3 masks just to be safe. Think of it like triple bagging your face. It's the only way to be safe.
So if you have a physical covering with 1 layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense that it likely would be more effective. And that's the reason why you see people either double masking or doing a version of an N95.
So double masking is now just common sense. Just common sense. How long are people going to put up with this? Follow the logic. Wouldn't it just be safer at this point for people just to stop breathing entirely? You wouldn't get COVID. You get the impression that's kind of where Tony Fauci may be a few months from now. Back in March, before he was allowed to appear on MSNBC's primetime shows, Tony Fauci wasn't just opposed to double masking. He was opposed to any masking, to masks, remember?
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is.
This guy's a malignant buffoon. He is. And the teachers' unions are actively hurting children. They are. Why are we listening to any of these people?
These people are sick.
Miranda Devine is a columnist with the New York Post who joins us tonight. Why are we listening to these people? How much authority do they have left, would you say, Miranda?
Well, I'm sorry, but with Tony Fauci, I am not going to listen to a man who admitted that he lied to us about the efficacy of masks in the early time of the pandemic when it might have made a difference, might have saved some lives. I'm not listening to someone who told us blithely to go off and catch a cruise in March during the pandemic, or in fact who argued vociferously with the president, then Trump, about stopping flights from Wuhan, China on January 31st. So he doesn't have any authority, moral or scientific, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not going to listen to him about double or triple masking. What he should be doing is he should be saying loud and clear to Joe Biden and the teacher unions that the number one psychological risk we have at the moment is to a generation of children, millions of children who are in misery at the moment. They're, as you said, committing suicide. They're in all sorts of trouble. And Tony Fauci should be telling us what the science is, because we know what the science is. It is that children do not pass on the virus to their teachers. In fact, they get less infected than their parents. They are not a risk. And these teachers are it is the only line of work where you can sit at home and not go to work and still get paid. It is pathological. That video you showed of those people prancing around, that's sociopathic to be doing that when children are committing suicide because they can't go to school, they're trapped. And we are just betraying their futures, throwing them away. And Joe Biden has this unique ability to connect with the teacher unions because he is the teacher union guy. He's the union guy. And he has the political capital at the moment because he's not Donald Trump. He just won an election. He could actually go to those unions who will listen to him because he does have that moral authority from his union background and tell them that they should stop scaremongering, listen to the science that he tells us is so important, understand that they are not going to get sick from their students, and that they need to go back to work. And frankly, to be pretending that you're not going to go back to work until all the children are vaccinated, as well as all the teachers, is just a fraud, because we know that the vaccine is not approved yet for children, and children are not at risk. So go back to school now and look after the children that you are entrusted to look after, or otherwise just quit and let somebody else get in and do those jobs. I'm sure, you know, you could get any person on the street could walk in and teach those kids better.
Last night in Loudoun County, Virginia, one parent said what every other parent in this country has thought. This is insane. It's killing our children.
You're a bunch of cowards hiding behind our children as an excuse for keeping schools closed. You think you're some sort of martyrs because of the decisions you're making, when the statistics do not lie that the vast majority of the population is not at risk from this virus. The garbage workers who pick up my freaking trash risk their lives every day more than anyone in this school system. Figure it out or get off the podium, because you know what? There are people like me and a line of other people out there who will gladly take your seat and figure it out. It's not a high bar. Raise the freaking bar.
You can feel the emotion and you know where it comes from. That man and so many other parents have been home with their own kids for the better part of a year. I honestly think if Trump had run on this, he would have won. Just my view. Because people care about their kids, and the kids are being really hurt. That's real. Miranda, I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams, one of our favorite people in public service. Could you, sir, explain to us the virus and some of the unknowns, because it feels like we learn a little bit more every day about how it might be transmitted?
Well, Dana, thank you for having me. And I want to be straight with the American people. I want them to know that this virus is a new situation that is changing. We're learning about it each and every day. But I do want America to know that the risk right now is low to the average American. We know there are higher risk groups. We know that if you are older, if you have medical comorbidities such as diabetes, heart disease, or lung disease, you are at higher risk. But I want to give you some perspective really quickly. 18,000 people have died of the flu in this country this year so far. And as you mentioned at the top, 11 people have died from coronavirus. And while our hearts go out to each and every family who's lost an individual, it's important that we keep things in perspective and we recognize that we can do things to keep our country safe.
We have a list of the tips to prevent it. They're the ones we've been hearing about. You avoid being around people that are sick, avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth, and stay home, and wash your hands frequently. And then there's also these recommendations from the CDC about a face mask. I loved your tweet the other day. What do you think about face masks?
Well, it's important for folks to know that face masks are not recommended for the general public. There are two things people should know. Number one, if you wear a face mask and you're not wearing it properly, you're going to be more likely to touch your face, and you can actually increase your risk of getting a respiratory disease like coronavirus or flu. Number two, when people hoard masks, they are not available for healthcare providers who actually need them. So my advice to folks, stop buying masks. If you're part of the general public, leave them for the healthcare providers so they can take care of people who are sick.
Joining us now with more facts, without fear, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams. Okay, why have we had such confusion?
Good evening, John.
Thank you, sir, for waiting. I know you're working day and night. I know nobody's sleeping. Why has there been so much confusion on the issue of surgical masks?
Well, that's a great question, and it's important for the American people to know that the task force always makes recommendations based on the science. And the science originally told us that people who wear masks are not protecting themselves from the virus. We actually recommend that people who have symptoms or people who think they may have a disease to wear a mask so they don't spread it to others. And the WHO, the CDC, and my office all initially stated that. What's changed? Well, what's changed is we found that there are a significant number of people who have asymptomatic spread of the virus. And so the CDC changed its recommendations today, and they now suggest that the general public consider wearing masks when they're going out in public so as not to spread disease to other people, particularly in situations where they may be closer than 6 feet from each other. A couple of really important points that I want you to know. Number one, this does not replace social distancing. The most important thing to do is still to stay home. If you're going to wear a facial covering, please make sure you don't touch your face and that you wash your hands so you aren't contaminating yourself. And leave the N95 and the surgical mask to the healthcare professionals because they need them to take care of high-risk patients. A cloth facial covering is what the CDC recommends. That works just fine to protect other people from you because we're all in this together. You wear a mask to protect me and I wear it to protect you, Sean.
U.S. authorities directly pleaded with Americans on Tuesday to wear masks to help stop the coronavirus. Cases have more than doubled in 14 U.S. states in June, according to Reuters data, including California, Florida, and Texas. Vice President Mike Pence joined U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams, who called the mask, quote, an instrument of freedom.
Please, 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 wear a face covering when you go out in public. It is not an inconvenience. It is not a suppression of your freedom. It actually is a vehicle to achieve our goals. It adds to your convenience and your freedom because it allows us to open up more places.
It follows the U.S. top infectious disease expert Dr. Fauci's dire health warning on Tuesday that if Americans fail to follow health guidelines, new COVID-19 cases could hit 100,000 a day. Officials warned that some Americans, particularly young adults, have recently let down their guard and are socializing without masks on. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence echoed the call, but struck a more upbeat note praising healthcare workers.
We continue to be vigilant as we see rising cases. We understand that could change, but again, to see the precipitous decline in fatalities is a tribute to the healthcare workers in this country.
While most of the world appears over the worst of the pandemic, the United States and a few other countries are still seeing huge daily spikes.
Business owners in San Francisco's Chinatown are struggling with a slump in business due to fear surrounding the coronavirus. KPIX 5's Ann Makovic is live as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi addresses the issue there. Ann?
Yeah, come with me as we stalk Speaker Pelosi right now. She's been taking a tour down Chinatown, and we have stopped already at a temple. We've stopped at a fortune cookie factory, the Walk Shop, which sells cookware, and now she is stopping at one of the little gift shops in Chinatown. As you can see her live now, she has been talking to people along the way, a lot of business owners, a lot of community leaders here in Chinatown who have been concerned about the optics of the coronavirus and the fear that some people might have coming to a place like Chinatown that might have a lot of Chinese nationals. So she has been going around to show that it is perfectly safe to be here. She says that this is a very special place to her heart because she started a lot of her early campaigning when she started her political career, some of it right here in Chinatown. And we got some word from her earlier on sort of the message that she's trying to purvey here.
It's exciting to be here, especially at this time, to be able to be unified with our community. We want to be vigilant about what might be on what is out there in other places. We want to be careful about how we deal with it, but we do want to say to people, come to Chinatown. Here we are. We're, again, careful, safe, and come join us.
Dan, I want to point out that no cases of the coronavirus have been found here in Chinatown or San Francisco at all. So she's really just trying to point that out because they have seen a drop in business here. Again, back at the Chinese Bazaar gift shop here on Grant Street. She's a real tourist attraction in and of herself, as you can imagine. People are so excited to see her, people from all over the world. And again, of course, right here in Chinatown, who are really happy for the speaker's support today. Live in San Francisco, Ann McAvick, KPIX 5.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
My second question is, there are some, at least one White House official, who use the term Kung Flu, referring to the fact that this virus started in China. Is that acceptable? Is it wrong? Are you worried that having this virus be talked about as a Chinese virus, that might...
I wonder who said that. Do you know who said that?
I'm not sure the person's name, but...
Do you know who said that?
I'm not sure the person's name, but would you condemn the fact...
Say the term again.
A person at the White House used the term Kung Flu. My question is, do you think that's wrong, Kung Flu? And do you think using the term Chinese virus, that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might target them?
No. I think they probably would agree with it 100%. It comes from China. It comes from China. Any question for him right now? Could you do that? Because you know what I'd like to do? I'd like him to go back to the State Department, or as they call it, the Deep State Department, if you don't mind. I'd like to have him go back and do his job. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah. It comes from China.
It's easy to forget, especially after the past 4 years, but this country's powerful intelligence agencies weren't always on bad terms with the White House. Usually they've been used as tools of the White House. That was especially true in the Obama administration. The Obama people didn't have a very hard time getting phone records from, say, journalists or Fox News reporters or tens of millions of Americans. All they had to do was call up their friends, the DOJ or NSA, and boom, your phone is their phone. That's an awful lot of power, and of course it's an obvious abuse of power. And for whatever reason, we're not psychiatrists here, some former members of the Obama administration, long removed from their time in office, still fantasize about that power. They think about it a lot. They don't want to see phone records for any reason in particular. They just want to see phone records, period. They need to see them. So yesterday, the great obsession became too great, too overpowering to hide from the rest of us. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State under Barack Obama, admitted in public that she is positively losing her mind without the authority to seize Verizon servers and just take a look around. Just give me one peek, Hillary said, just one peek.
I hope historically we will find out who he's beholden to, who pulls his strings. I would love to see his phone records to see whether he was talking to Putin the day that the insurgents invaded our capital.
I would love to see his phone records. That's not a figure of speech, by the way, when Hillary Clinton says it. It's a command. She's convinced the president's phone records will show that he called Vladimir Putin and organized the insurrection at the Capitol building. There'll be a new impeachment, and Hillary Clinton will be named president. But here's the thing. For Hillary Clinton, it's not even about power anymore, or the presidency, or proving the pollsters wrong, or any of that. It's about getting access to even more phone records. That's been her real goal all along. Her obsession, now laid bare for everyone to see. And unless someone stages a phone record intervention, that's all Hillary Clinton will ever care about. Your phone records. Let us see the phone records. You thought they were safe. Not from Hillary Clinton. She has a right to them.
One of the fears that I hear from Russians is that somehow the United States wants Russia to be weak. That could not be farther from the truth. Our goal is to help strengthen Russia. We see Russia with the strong culture, with the incredible intellectual capital that Russia has, as a leader in the 21st century. And we sometimes feel like we believe more in your future than sometimes Russians do.
Stop it right now, you proles! How dare you!
How dare you!
Fire up a bowl and accept your fate.
It comes from China.